Hello and welcome. My name is James Rice from Mohawk Valley Community College, and today I'm joined by Margaret Leary from Northern Virginia Community College. Margaret, how are you today?
Oh, fine, thanks.
Today we're here to talk about your upcoming topic at the Insight Summit, the challenges in building stronger community college cyber articulation agreements. And I have to say that teaching at a college that primarily has a cyber degree, that's an AS degree as opposed to an AAS or one of the kind of straight to workforce degrees. This particular topic certainly was immediately, it kind of caught my eye. It was immediately interesting to me. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about, okay, what is it that you actually looked at and researched, because this is something that definitely I'm concerned about and I have to do on a regular basis. So I thought maybe for someone like me and for our audience, if you could give a little bit of the history as kind of, okay, what does this topic mean to you? Maybe what was some of the way you went about researching this, some of your models, outcomes, et cetera. I think that'd be a great place to start.
Sure. Well, it's interesting that you have an AS degree because you actually fall in the minority of cybersecurity programs at community colleges with an AS, which is a more transferable degree than the applied AAS degree. With the one study that we did with the ACM, we found that 80% of community college cybersecurity programs were in their applied AAS degrees. And so with that comes quite a lot of articulation challenges. Most transfer programs, well, let's be real, transfer programs in themselves are inherently AS degree programs. So working with a senior institution to try to accommodate an applied degree program does present a lot of challenges. Students, if they're in certain programs where these pathways haven't been created, they can stand to lose a lot of credits in those transfers. And so that's one of the things that, at my school that we looked at in 2014 when we were putting together a degree program was, how do we set this up so the student doesn't lose credit? And I know that my president had come and said, well, how come we aren't doing an AS degree? I said, well, why would we? When we do transfer our IT degrees with our cyber certificates so widely. And so that drove the necessity really for presenting this challenge that we have and making certain that senior institutions are aware of it and that community colleges are aware of what their options are with where do you go to put into effect a pathway. It doesn't have to be, we won't call it a transfer program, but we can call it a pathway to smooth the transfer and ensure that students are able to get all of their credits transferred into a 4-year degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is kind of interesting because as you're talking and saying, I'm in the minority, it's like definitely the things you're talking about. It's like, yeah, that is a lot of what I experience with our cyber program being the transfer program. It's really consistent, but I didn't necessarily have the perspective to know that that's not necessarily what every other college experiences.
Yeah.
And we do have a couple other AAS programs here, but I don't necessarily focus on them because they're not the CAE accredited program for our college. So I guess kind of having said that, realizing that now there are many others that do fall into that category, how do some of the differences between an AS as opposed to an AAS, how do some of those differences manifest themselves more in the working world or in the professional world? How does this look to an employer? Right.
Well, from my perspective as an employer, I consult for federal agencies, is pretty much that. Number one, employers don't care if you pull your degree out of a Cracker Jack box as long as it's a regionally accredited Cracker Jack box. But they're looking for people that have the hard skills. I think it is a mistake to believe when you go to a conference and you hear individuals say, oh, you know what, we don't care if you know which buttons to push. We just want somebody who can think critically and we will train them. My experience has been such that we're not looking to train anybody when we're staffing a contract. You either need the people who have the skills or you look for someone else. And so community colleges have traditionally done the best job at training the workforce. In many instances, you will find that four-year senior institutions, training becomes sort of a dirty word in many cases. And so even students, for instance, in your case where you have an AS degree that has a lot of general education credits, math, science, those types of things that fill state requirements for transfer into a senior institution, that they're not getting the hands-on hard skills that employers are looking for. I actually have a lot of employers that come to me and say, we're tired of hiring from four-year schools because we're not getting the skills that we need. We're having to do too much training. And so the AAS degree and finding pathways, the AAS degree, I'll give you an example. In our program at Northern Virginia Community College, 49 of the 64 credits are IT and cyber related. And these are all hands-on courses. And so by the time the student graduates, they have those hard skills behind them that they can articulate, having used these tools like Wireshark, Nessus, Nmap in multiple courses. And so they're able to articulate that to the employer. Obviously the challenge though becomes finding those senior institutions into which that degree can transfer. And so there are some workarounds to that, however, and we've been very successful at working with, for instance, George Mason University and helping them build an applied baccalaureate. And so we have a full pathway from the two-year AAS into a BAS cybersecurity degree. And now even it's no longer a terminal degree there, they're able to offer a pathway into a Master's of Science in digital forensics.
Now, again, just speaking out of my own personal experience, because that's really all I can and kind of my perspective here at Mohawk Valley, kind of being a community college, we naturally have students that are oftentimes a little bit older and they have different life circumstances. And so even though we're an AS program, I still see a significant number of students who they need to go to the workforce, right? They got bills to pay. And I'm oftentimes still encouraging them, though, to kind of still pursue the higher level education and realize that that's kind of what this specific program was designed for. Do you see that being consistent with what employers are looking for still?
Oh, right. I mean, we have students, in one class, I think 70% of my students were over the age of 30, between the ages of 30 and 59. And many of them come in with advanced degrees, but they're looking to, maybe that degree's in basket weaving. And so they're looking at upgrading their hard skills. And those are actually the ideal candidates because they can do the two-year degree and in an AAS degree, they're getting the hard skills they need. And then they can go immediately into the workforce. They've got, the check mark for the bachelor's. It doesn't really matter on most contracts that, it's in something other than cyber. But they've got the cyber degree, hopefully they have certifications. And so these students actually do very well when they graduate. And when, with the younger students, I encourage all of the younger students to move on, especially in our region, for a four-year degree. When in the Northern Virginia area, because we have such a highly educated population to begin with, it's very competitive. And so it may not be the same within other regions where you can go from a two-year degree immediately into the workforce. So I do believe in that students need that four-year degree to meet those job requirements. However, they need those programs to instill those hard skills that the employers are looking for.
Yeah, and I guess there's some parallels with what you're saying. I'm thinking of my local job market around me. There is quite a bit of computer science driven by military contracts, et cetera. And so they do have that desire and that push to, hey, continue to pursue your higher education. But just because the demand is so high, a lot of times they will get hired with just by having the hard skills that we continue to prove that the students have.
Well, and it depends on the program too, because, in a pure computer science environment, and I think you said yours is within the computer science department, my study actually shows that 80% of graduates from a four-year program in computer science will become software engineers. And so because there's a wide range of specializations within cybersecurity, perhaps in your area, you are placing a lot of those students into developing new technologies. Interestingly, I had a chair that once told me that the difference between computer science and IT was that computer science creates technology. IT is the application of that technology to meet a business need. And so very much I think you have to understand, how does your program fit within the job market? And so in these areas where you have a heavy research and development presence, I think it's absolutely appropriate for computer science oriented degrees to be looking at filling that workforce. In our area, it is more, we're looking for security analysts, we're looking for network administrators with security knowledge, security engineers to install product, intrusion detection systems, firewalls, operate those systems, as well as do security assessments, penetration tests, et cetera. And so, to a different extent, we're looking for those individuals with basic technical hard skills on products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really interesting how, we're the main topic here is articulation and the importance of it. And yet still we need to be specifically aware as to what does our local industry look like to be able to bridge the gap and realize what people are really looking for.
Well, I guess, you don't want to, well, I was going to say, you don't want to hinder the student in giving them, and maybe one of the drawbacks to an AAS degree is that it's not a universally transferable degree because of the lack of gen ed requirements. And so that's why I think it's important that if you do have an AAS degree and you do have a job market where, employers are expecting a 4-year degree, that you look and you build those relationships, even if you have to create those pathways to senior institutions. I mean, we've had to do this ourselves, work closely with our senior partners to create these applied baccalaureates into which these degrees could transfer, including adult degree completion programs. Those are some of the most successful models that we see.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'd say maybe to kind of wrap up the conversation, I always like to kind of bring things back to the students. Us as faculty, a lot of times we're that liaison between their academic career and their professional career, and part of our job is to kind of interpret all of this stuff that's going on kind of for them and kind of guide them and lead them and mentor them. So, having said that, what should we try to communicate to our students regarding this topic?
Well, I think it's important, and it's really difficult for a student to know where in this space they want to play. Is it forensics? Is it, pen testing? And so, I think it's important that they look at their options and before they enter into a 2-year program, start looking at where am I going to go beyond that, and what is the pathway to get there. Where, what do I want to do in this career? And sometimes that's difficult. I think it's important with early courses to be able to show them those resources like CyberSeek as an example, and say, look, here are all the different roles that you could go into. Why don't you do a little bit of exploration and see if it's network administration, if it's security engineering, what is interesting to you, and then we can figure out maybe it is a more transfer oriented alternative for that student. So anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say anecdotally, that really seems to be effective for the students to break a few eggs and try some things out, and
exactly.
they enjoy doing that.
Right.
Well, Margaret, I want to thank you here for joining me today, giving us this preview to the upcoming topic here for at the summit in the fall, and we look forward certainly to hearing more as to what you have to say at the full presentation.
All right, looking forward to it. All right. Thank you.
Yep, enjoy your day.
You too.